This is the Volkswagen ID.5, next in the series of Wolfsburg's EV models. This is not just an SUV, it's a coupe SUV. It collects swarm data, it charges without user authentication like a Tesla, and it will park itself in your driveway. Well, not this one. This one is programmed to park in my driveway, but you get the gist. The ID.5 is pretty much an ID.4 but with a different rear end. Both cars have the same external and internal dimensions, taking into account the difference in the boot space with the seats in the second row folded. The ID.5 has 1561 liters, which is 14 less than in the ID.4. With the seats up, the boot volume is 549 liters in both cars, and in both cars you can't fit the parcel shelf under the boot floor. Why not use a rolling cover like in the Skoda Enyaq? If you go for the premium audio system, you get a subwoofer, but you lose half of the space to store the charging cables, which is a bummer because then you can't really store them. There are also shopping bag hooks, a 12-volt socket, and hands-free opening and closing of the tailgate. And what about the looks? The ID.5 looks like whatever. VW designers have to fit several very similar models on a single platform. There's the ID.4, ID.5, Enyaq IV, Enyaq Coupe IV, Q4 e-tron and Q4 Sportback e-tron. Underneath they're almost the same, and Max Mustermann can barely tell them apart anyway. So the ID.5 has large wheels and doors which cover the sills to mask the thick floor, and hiding in the floor is 77 kWh worth of batteries. Even the batteries are pretty much the same for most of the ID range mentioned above. All have more or less 80 kWh capacity. Volkswagen doesn't know if and when the smaller batteries will return. In the back, it's like in the ID.4, good legroom, and that's with the driver's seat automatically moved back a couple of inches for easy access in the front. So I'm 175 centimeters tall, and let's imagine the driver's seat is set for someone who's about 180 centimeters tall. Now, headroom is so-so because I'm sitting on those batteries. Now, the door pockets are okay. There is an armrest with cup holders and a ski hatch as well. And the passengers have their own climate control back here and two USB-C ports. Now, the ISOFIX anchor points are not just in the back but also on the front passenger seat. But who came up with these piano black door handles? Who? I can't. Let's go to the front. More about the door handles in the front, because here, beside the piano black, we also have an example of changes which nobody asked for, and during the endless product design meetings, nobody had the guts to say what the actual... You know what. I'm talking about the power window switches. How much has VW saved eliminating two physical buttons and replacing them with a newly designed one-touch button, which works like it has a mind of its own? I realize, with global warming and with an average of 1-point-something passenger traveling by car, the rear windows will be dropped sporadically. But still, was it worth it to redesign this? The driving position kills the SUV illusion. The floor is high, so you sit low and hit the steering wheel with your thigh when you're getting in, especially if you carry something in your pocket like keys maybe. In the Mercedes-Benz EQA and EQB, designers managed to squeeze the batteries in the back and under the front seats, leaving at least people in the front with SUV-like legroom. The ID.5 cockpit is identical to the one in the ID.4. This car comes with the Volkswagen ID software 3.1, which you can tell by the battery percentage displayed on the driver's screen next to the range. The ID software 3.1 also offers other new functions. More about those when we start driving. Meanwhile, the infotainment system is still the same laggy touch screen with AC and volume controls, touch as well, and this touch panel with shortcuts. The latter, by the way, crashed on me once and was unavailable for 15 minutes or so. The infotainment system takes some 20 to 30 seconds to boot when the car has been parked for longer. What's the point of starting the car by simply putting it in drive when everything else takes ages to get ready? But having experienced the new VW infotainment system in several cars, I'm slowly getting used to its logic, or I'm giving up. I think VW ended with the Mark 7 Golf. As long as there is Android Auto, I'm just going to limit using this thing. I don't want to use it. The cup holders are removable and can be replaced with dividers. These are also in the cubby by the floor between the seats. This is where the wireless charger and 2 USB-C ports also live. The seats have individually adjustable armrests. Here both seats are electrically operated and both have memory function. The glove box is average size, but the door pockets are large. When I reviewed the ID4 in 2021, the car was available with two battery capacities, 52 and 77 kilowatt-hours net. Today, both cars are available only with 77 kilowatt-hour batteries, and it is unclear whether the smaller capacity will return. Possibly, VW will upgrade batteries in new cars in a few years. In recently launched ID Buzz, VW will offer slightly larger capacity as of early 2024. The ID5 is available as the 170 horsepower Pro, the 204 horsepower Pro Performance, and the 299 horsepower GTX with all-wheel drive. The Pro cars have claimed range up to 520 kilometers and the GTX up to 490 kilometers WLTP. The rear-wheel drive versions can tow up to 1200 kilograms and the all-wheel drive GTX can tow up to 1400 kilograms. This, of course, will significantly impact its range. Simple calculations show that the ID5 GTX would have to use less than 16 kilowatt-hours per 100 kilometers to achieve the claimed range. Meanwhile, according to the manufacturer data, all ID5 models use about 17 kilowatt-hours per 100 kilometers, which gives theoretical range of around 450 kilometers. Of course, there is recuperation. You can either choose B instead of D, for example, when coasting downhill, or use adaptive radar-based recuperation. The car will slow down as traffic in front of you is starting to slow down, as well as you approach a junction or something. This works regardless of the adaptive cruise control. I managed the ID5 GTX to use below 20 kilowatt-hours per 100 kilometers, driving mainly around the city and between, let's say, smaller towns and villages. There was also a brief motorway test, so the real life range in my case is about 400 kilometers. I'm recording this review in late August 2022 as Europe is experiencing a heat wave. The AC is working overtime. I'm driving mainly in comfort mode. I used Eco and Sport just to see what they do, and as far as I can tell, they mainly change their reaction to the accelerator pedal. In comfort mode, I manage 0 to 100 km per hour in 6.2 seconds, and in sport mode, 6.3 seconds as claimed by the manufacturer. I guess the fraction of a second is just a measurement error. During the motorway drive, I recorded energy consumption between 25 kWh per 100 km at 120 km per hour to 28 kWh per 100 km at 140 km per hour. So with tailwind you can drive about 300 km on the motorway before you have to start looking for a fast charger. Speaking of charging, the ID.5 can take up to 100 kilowatts in the Pro spec and up to 135 kilowatts in GTX spec. So charging 10 to 80% takes around half an hour to 40 minutes. And here we arrive at yet another ID Software 3.1 novelty, and that's plug and charge. Basically, it's like Tesla supercharger network. You arrive at the charger, plug in, and there is no need for additional authentication with an app or a card. Whether or not this is relevant to you, it's a different story. So far, plug and charge works with Ionity, Aral, BP, Enel, Iberdrola, and Evini. Other networks may join in the future, but that may require some time for them to adapt their infrastructure, and that takes, obviously, time and money. Just in case, don't delete all those charging apps just yet. Anyway, you can always charge at home, where the ID.5 will park itself. Well, almost. First, you have to store the GPS location of the exact parking spot. That means you need to have the view of the sky. Perhaps if your garage has very thin roof, you could pull off parking inside, but it's more likely to work in your driveway. The procedure to store the place is quite simple, and so is launching it. You have to stop relatively close to the stored parking spot, and a pop-up window will appear asking whether you want to park. Or you can launch the Park Assist Plus with memory function feature from the parking menu. Then you apply the brake, press start on the screen, release the brake, and from now on everything should happen automatically. In case of emergency, you can cancel the maneuver by pressing the brake or grabbing the steering wheel. I don't know what your driveway looks like, but mine has a slight incline because of the curb, and the parking assistant seems to get stuck on that tiny incline. The accelerator doesn't work, so I can't force the car to climb up. After a number of attempts, I found a way around it. I pressed the brake for a moment to get the system to go into standby, and then I let it go. The car rolls down an inch or two and turns the steering wheel a bit more. 2-3 attempts, and sometimes it manages to get the wheel straight enough to have enough torque to drive up, or it cancels the maneuver and the car shuts down. Perhaps VW can fix this with a software update. Another new feature is the improved Travel Assist, which now uses cloud data, or swarm data as VW likes to call it. So let's imagine a road without central markings on it. If another VW car with swarm data drove here, then my car will understand how this road works, and the Travel Assist will know how to navigate despite incomplete road markings. In a few years, car-to-car technology may become useful. For now, I imagine it works only in places where there is high concentration of cars using car-to-car technology, in this case VW cars, and no, I did not go to Wolfsburg to test it. Something that I notice about Travel Assist is that it is now far less aggressive with adapting the speed to speed limits than in the earlier models. Before, I was really afraid that somebody's gonna rear-end me. Also, I get the impression that the brake feel has improved when switching from regenerative to traditional braking, so that's a plus. What else? Well, I mean, the ID.5 is kind of dull. Dull? 300 horsepower, all-wheel drive, 6 seconds, 0 to 100 kilometers per hour, and this sorry excuse for a reviewer calls it dull? Well, if you get turned on by understeer, get an ID.5 GTX and a box of tissues, but if you expect a Taycan on the budget, keep the piggy bank intact and keep on saving. The ID.5 is fast in a straight line, but who cares if the range drops like the value of your savings during inflation? On the plus side, soundproofing is very good indeed. On the minus side, the visibility is like in an SUV, even though your driving position is like in a hatchback. The suspension masks the fact that the GTX weighs more than 2.2 tons, and that's good. The ID Pro models have 10.2 meters turning circle, while the GTX with all-wheel drive has 11.6 meters turning circle, and there is a 360 camera to help you in tight spots. The heads-up display with augmented reality displays basic Android Auto directions, but the full functionality with arrows hanging over exits is available only with OEM sat-nav. This is also when you get the IQ light bar directions. And since this is an all-wheel drive model after all, here's my diagonal approach test. The GTS has a traction mode, but as far as I can tell, it copes well enough even in comfort mode. Most EVs with all-wheel drive do well here, but don't be fooled. When the going gets tough, weight and lack of grip will pull you down. Prices of the Volkswagen ID.5 start at €47,935 for the Pro model. This test ID.5 GTX with options costs €61,145. It's good to see VW is making its cars better through software updates. Some of the new features I mentioned in this review will trickle down to ID models released earlier. Whether or not these updates will actually be useful in real life is a different story. And how do you like the Volkswagen ID.5 GTX? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like my sarcastic, down-to-earth and possibly mildly amusing car reviews, join me every Friday at 3 p.m. Central European Time, and don't forget to subscribe and like this video as it helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.